with the video on? I thought it's my, because no one was speaking, so I thought it's my network.
I had
I'm gonna,
gone to fetch my book.
okay, no problem. I'm audible, right? Okay, cool. So I think Matthew has also joined in. Good evening, Matthew. How are you?
Good evening, sir. Sorry for being late. I had to go out
Yeah.
for extra classes.
Okay, I understand. So I was just giving some like tips and discussing about the boards and the plan further after the boards. So we are just starting.
Please.
Yeah, we're just starting. So I was just telling everyone that just first prepare for the boards, and after your boards are over, you will have 1.5 month before your entrance is there, right? And for that, Learnivio is planning for a crash course kind of a thing, where we will start with 11th, a rapid, fast, but with discussions, goal-oriented classes. So you can think about that if you wish. And even so, I was also saying that these classes, once the syllabus is over, it's not like I'll not be in touch or contact. If you have any doubts, you can always send those doubts to the group. Okay, I'll try to solve it on groups if required. As a study class kind of a setup, we can arrange some classes as well. Okay. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so latitudinal gradients and the second part, which is species area relationship, is done, right? We did that. Any doubts in this graph? I've seen this graph asked in boards. So you should just know what this graph is all about and what it says, what is species area relationship. And I hope it's all clear, right? What is the Z value? When the Z value increases, when the Z value decreases. This could be one question. That's it. And then I ask you to go back and read about loss of biodiversity, right? 15.1.4. Yep. Did you, anyone who read these topics? Okay, if not, so let's start in a discuss. Let's start. Yes, Arpit seems to have done it. So let's start in a little bit of discussive manner. So till now, I think we all agree that biodiversity is important, right? And we also know now that how biodiversity is set. It has a pattern. It is not very random like people used to think before, but now we realize that there are evolutionary and geographical reasons for biodiversity being very rich in the tropics, less richer in the temperate, and very less in the polar regions, right? After knowing that, we also agree, all of us, that we are losing biodiversity, right? Loss of biodiversity is there. What do we mean by loss of biodiversity? Simply
Extinction of species.
extinction of species. But why are we worried about it all of a sudden? Extinction of species used to happen, always. So if dinosaurs wouldn't have gone extinct, humans would never have emerged as the leaders of the planet. It was a reptilian world where mammals were just some handful, and mammals did not have much scope because we were not as fierce as these reptiles were, because they were very big and they had very fierce ways of predation. So they could very easily predate all the mammals around. So mammals could never rise. Tigers, lions, all these things now which we see are very fierce and they rule the jungle, and humans who in general kind of rule the whole planet, we were nothing in front of dinosaurs. So if dinosaurs weren't extinct, we mammals would never have become a mammalian world. So we never worried about, we never showed concern about all these extinct species whose fossil we find. Why are we all of a sudden concerned about species that are getting extinct now? What is the problem? It's not something new.
But it will affect our ecosystem.
It will affect our ecosystem, yes. But how do you think it will affect our ecosystem? What if, my simple question is, we have, let's say, 10,000, 30,000 varieties of ants. What if we just have 20,000 varieties of ants? Our ecosystem still have ants, but why are we worried about 10,000 species gone, but 20,000 are still there? Too many ants to handle. Why do we need all 15,000 species of butterflies? What if just 5,000 go extinct and we just have 10,000? What's the problem? Yeah. That is, we are not saying that biology is, we are losing life from the planet. We are saying diversity of life is, we are losing diversity of life. So what is the problem then? So this last line says that the last 20 years alone, if you can see this last line, everyone, let me annotate it. If this is the annotation tool, yes, this is it. Okay, this is it. Okay. Okay. So this last line, which says the last 20 years alone have witnessed the disappearance of 27 species. But what's the problem? Just 27 species gone from the planet. We have 1.3 billion, 1.3 million species that we have figured out are there on the planet. Because this is a very pressing question. Someone from the industries can just, who does not believe in biodiversity laws, who's a profit oriented person, who just is an industrialist, who capitalists, they can always ask you questions. So what is the problem? You have 1.3 million species. Be happy with that. Just 27 got lost. What's the issue?
So every species is important in their own way.
Yeah, but do you think it's a answer enough
It'll
to
affect like the food web, so it'll be a chain reaction.
it will affect the food web? All your answers are correct, but you have to, let's say, give it in the face of a capitalist or industrialist who are just clearing forests, cutting woods, and saying that the loss is not that big. So you are right that it affects the food web. You are also right that every species is important, but how are you going to give them the logic so that they say that, okay, even 27 is very, very important? And maybe extinction of these 27 is not the major problem that we are addressing here. So let's say Tasmanian tiger is extinct, but what? I don't think any problem happening in Australian ecosystem or any Tasmanian ecosystem where these tigers are not there. Saber-tooth, mammoth have extincted in the past. Kiwi, dodo, emu, they are on the verge of extinction. But I don't see any problem happening. Ecosystem is still fine. We are still reading the books and we are still trying to conserve ecosystem. But something that Matthew says, if you elaborate on it, makes more sense. If I go here. So the extinction of an individual species doesn't seem to be that much of a problem. But the problem is the reason why. When something starts to shatter, when any big system starts to collapse, you always see a few crumbles coming down first, right? So you will see like, oh, it's nothing. Just 2 bricks from this building fell, or just 1 tile from the roof fell. It's okay, not a problem, right? We won't say that, right? Because we know that the whole structure is now becoming fragile and vulnerable, right?
Yes,
Do you understand? So what these extinctions tell us is not just that one amphibian is gone from the planet. It also raises question, why? What happened that those 27 species in last 20 years are completely wiped out from the planet? That what is the main reason we study biodiversity loss, and we want to prevent it. Because when you study biodiversity loss, you realize that this extinction is not random. Okay, it has a pattern again, just like setting up biodiversity. Yes, Fatima, tell me.
Sequence.
Yeah, maybe sequence, if not sequence, but still a pattern where we see that if at some place these kind of industries were set up, or industries that rely on wood was set up, then they started cutting down the forests. So the forests also have regions. Forest is not just like homogeneous right from the entry to the end. If you will never see some kind of organisms living in the very center, which is the core of the forest, and some organisms living at the edge, which is the buffer of the forest. Okay, so as you go inside the forest, you start encountering different kinds of organisms. Okay, so setting up of biodiversity is also not very random, and that's where extinction is also not just random, that you put your hand in the lottery box and you chose one species and that got extinct. No, there was a reason, there was a sequence, as Fatima is saying, sequence of events that led to the extinction of that particular species. And you will see mostly groups like amphibians appear to be more vulnerable to extinction. Okay, and why is that? Why do you think group of amphibians are more vulnerable?
Because they require water and land both to live.
Yeah, because first their requirements, Fatima is saying, is their habitat requirements are very, very specific. You know, you cannot make an amphibian flourish everywhere. That's the first thing, and that's obviously a correct reason as well. And anything else? And the other thing is, extinction is the final full stop for the damage. When something is extinct, every single individual of that species is gone. That is what do we mean by extinction. So extinction itself is such a grim situation, such a dangerous situation. Now, we can never imagine extinction of humans. Imagine each and every single human is wiped out from the planet. Can you imagine that? Not really, right? No. But imagine, so at one point of time, these amphibians that got extinct, they were also in millions and millions of numbers. They were not like just 20 frogs all around the world that got extinct. They may be like, 700 million frogs at one point of time all across the globe in different forests, and that got extinct all of a sudden. So it tells you something really wrong has happened. And when we study extinction, we also study that which organisms are vulnerable to extinction. So not just extinction, but also you must have read the term threatened in the wild, right? If you go to any organism's Wikipedia on internet or the IUCN list of organisms, ZN is for zoological nomenclature. If you go there, you put any organism's name, they will tell you a status. That status will be either they are abundant, which means you don't have to worry about it, not listed. Not listed means they are so much in number that they are not even considered as a problem. For example, if you will go for pigeons are not going to get extinct. Crows are not going to get extinct currently. But if you go to some rhinoceros species, you will see that they are either on the verge of extinction or critically endangered in the wild or threatened in the wild. So these are the status. Okay. So we also realize that presently 12% of all bird species, 23% of all mammal species, 32% of all amphibian species, and 31% of all gymnosperm species face the threat to extinction. Now, these are numbers, if anyone asks you, which are worrisome. Do you understand? So those 27 species wiping out in 2 decades or 20 years is just those loose bricks falling. It is a wider indication, a bigger indication of that whole structure on the verge of collapse. So do you understand how big is this problem, right? The whole food web will just be shattered if we do not pay attention to conservation, right? That's why it's important, because everything is like a pyramid. Everything has set up upon something. So primary producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers. If you wipe out one tertiary consumer, let's say we wipe out tiger, why is there whole ruckus of save our tigers, save our tigers? What if there are no tigers? Then you think if there are no tigers, there will be no check on a particular secondary consumer. They will flourish like anything because there's no check on it. The apex predator is gone. By the time
there's no one to control that.
That's like?
There's no one to control that the rate of the secondary consumer.
Right. There's no one to control the rate of secondary consumers, but still one can ask, what is the problem? What you have so much against secondary consumers? Nothing, but they have to be in a balance. If secondary consumers start growing unchecked, they will actually eat and finish all the primary producers, all the plants, right? Because they need plants. Plants only grow at a rate, but cattle get hungry, thrice a day, just like us humans, right? Or at least twice a day they graze. So every day plants cannot grow, right? They cannot grow that fast. So at one point of time, all the primary producers will be eaten up by the secondary consumers. And then finally the secondary consumers will also die, right? Because of starvation. So just taking one thing, one species of apex predator out, you actually make the whole system vulnerable. And it's not like if tigers are not there, everything will be happy. No, it will not be like that. So you understand why we have to, and what answer you have to write and give. Is it clear?
But so there are other
Perfect.
like
Yeah,
like
very good.
for example, tigers are there. So there are other animals also like lions,
Wolf.
for example.
So
Oh yeah,
tigers and
wolf.
lions don't live together that good. The only bigger cat that lives with other bigger cats sometimes is cheetah. Cheetah is the most trainable wild cat. Cheetahs can't roar. There are cheetahs that were introduced in India now, right? You know that? From African mainland. Cheetahs were reintroduced in Indian forests to see what happens. Like, because there were cheetahs in India before, a few decades before, which got extinct. And the reason for that extinct was excessive poaching and hunting, illegal trade of the skin, and loss of habitat. But now they realize that we have to put them back. But I don't know if it's a good decision or bad. Only time will tell. Ecologists are divided on this issue. Some believe that it might work. Some believe it will not work because the new ecosystem has evolved without cheetahs. So cheetahs might be something out of the box to handle. But let's see. But you're right. There are other, if not, so with the apex predator, you will see other kind of carnivores which are not apex predator. For example, foxes, jackals, and wild dogs, they also live, or hyenas outside in African jungles. They also live along with tigers and lions, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So you're right. So they will take up the place. But the point is, it will take them also time to realize and change habits. Now they have evolved to hunt, not to hunt, basically to steal the hunt. So they're like scavengers more than apex predators. So if you take out apex predator, the system will take some time for some secondary predator to become apex predator, right? And remember that secondary predator is anyway more in number than the apex predator, right? In any forest, there will be more hyenas than there will be tigers.
Yes, sir.
Right? So if all of them become apex predator all of a sudden, then again the ecosystem is going to collapse. Do you understand what's happening here?
Yeah.
It's a very disciplined system. We never see of forest as a disciplined system, but it is. The ecosystem is very disciplined in a way. Anyways, so yes, so the reason is there have been 5 episodes of mass extinction in the past. During this long period, so life evolved somewhere around 3 billion years ago. And since then, if you see, there were 5 episodes that humans have figured out and they know of, geologists have figured out and know of. And I already told you how do we figure out extinction events just by looking at the fossil records. Now we are on the verge of what they say is 6th extinction event. And the 6th extinction event will not happen without affecting humans. So if we think that this extinction event will affect everything but not humans, we are wrong, because the one which is at the top of the pyramid is affected the most when the pyramid crumbles, right? It were dinosaurs when it was their rule, their world. And before that, whenever it happened, the most predominant species suffered the most. And this time it's us. So it also becomes very important for us to save the ecosystem because our fate also depends on it. Okay. And already people have started, scientists have started speculating and realizing that emerging increasing rates of pandemics, increasing rates of infections and mutations in pathogens, or multi-drug resistant strains of bacteria. They are all, uh, on the way to affect human population big time. Okay, we still don't know what are the long-term symptoms of COVID. We all think that COVID is gone, but it's not gone. It's still cooking in the chemistry of nature. In some vial, in some bottle, it's still cooking, mutating, learning, becoming more fierce, might just jump back again and start affecting. We never know it, right? You see waves coming up and going down in different parts of the world, right? It will take some time if everything goes good, and if our immune system wins with the help of or with the mercy of nature. If something else doesn't crop up very soon, because no one could actually predict when exactly will this viral pandemic will come, but what we can predict is there are many more to come. It's not the last, it's also not the first, it's also not the last. So we have to be very careful when we intrude or we remove biodiversity, because something is related to something else. Okay, cool. So now today we'll talk about causes, and this is the third and the last conceptual thing in this chapter, which might come as a long question in your boards. So causes of biodiversity loss. Okay, now I think you all can see the screen. Keep your books with you, and you can also mark things that I'm saying. So the question, before we go to causes, the thing is, what happens when we lose biodiversity? Okay, so if you see this part here, so loss of biodiversity. What happens when biodiversity is lost? It may lead to decline in plant production. Of course, if you're losing biodiversity, plants are a major component. So you can lose plants. Sometimes some plants which are very, very important to humans also get lost. Lowered resistant to environmental perturbations such as drought. Now this is a very, very important point here. Anyone would like to tell me how? What do we mean by this point at all? Let me change the color, people. I think yellow will look good. I'm asking, what do you understand by this term? Lower resistant to environmental perturbations. Why do you think droughts and famine happen? And all of this you have studied in your junior classes, believe me. All the high-end science is just about connecting the fundamentals that you studied in your junior classes. So no one is going to teach you something out of the box which you never heard about when you go to BSc, medical school, grad school, or when you do your research or become a researcher doing your PhD. We all read all these things back and forth again with some greater depth and perception. That's all. And a mature overview or outlook, you can say. So how do you think rains happen, droughts happen, famines happen? Any idea?
So droughts happen due to lack of rain.
Drought happens due to lack of rain. So that is not how drought happens. That is what droughts are, isn't it? I'm happy that you did not say, because early philosophers, when they thought why do droughts happen, they used to believe that it's a curse on the people of that region. So it's a curse from the water god or the creator, that now you will not have any rain or water. But now we understand the reason why it happens. And countries like big countries, which are powerful technical countries, which they should not do, but they can to an extent, prevent droughts, also prevent rainfall. How many of you know about Beijing Olympics that happened in China back in, I think, 2008 it happened?
Yes, sir, 2008.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you. So how many of you know that when Olympics were happening in Beijing, China in 2008, at
Yeah,
that
they were
time,
having a famine or a drought, I think. And then they
were on
still
the verge
continued
of
with
a
the
famine.
Olympics.
Yeah, they were on the verge of a famine, but no, that's not the point. It was the time when China actually, these places, so the other parts of China were in like famine, kind of semi-famine or semi-drought, sorry, semi-famine condition. But China decided, at many places where there were these stadiums, they artificially prolonged rain, postponed rain, as if they had an appointment with the god to say that, okay, let's not rain today. Today is a track and field event. Let's rain tomorrow or day after. They could do that. And they did that. They played with the very delicate balance of nature. To their luck, it was successful for them, but it could also have had severe side effects, which they had in mind. Actually, they actually calculated, and they realized, yeah, it can be done. So they did it. They actually sprinkled chemicals flying above the clouds, sprinkling chemicals on the clouds so that they don't precipitate for some time. They did that. That's why I say that we have the power as human species to just change, mess up the whole ecosystem. I'm still very,
Maybe
very
too much power.
Yeah, I'm still very amazed that we have not completely messed up the whole ecosystem by now. Because I can see that globally there is a lot of effort from ecologists, conservationists, people who have dedicated their life to conservation of a forest or a species. And if you will see that there are people who selflessly do that. So there are many person in India that I have heard about or read about, who single-handedly keep planting trees throughout their life, and they have created a forest of their own. If you go to internet, you can search about Forest Man of India. So this person on his own, in a span of 2-3 decades, have planted so many trees that it has actually made an ecosystem in a region where there were no trees. And he was awarded with I think the second highest civilian award for India long back. But I was just reading about him recently. So I still believe that if there are destructive forces, a part of humanity is also very constructive, and that's what keeping, it's like a tug of war, maybe. So destruction and conservation, and somehow we have managed to protect a lot of things till now. So lowered resistance to environmental perturbations such as drought means that when you lose plant area, plant cover, plants are very important for rains. Actually, it is plants that fill atmosphere with water and also fill atmosphere with oxygen. Okay, so to maintain humidity is very important, okay, to rain. And it will only rain if you have water in the atmosphere that rises up as vapors, condenses to form clouds, and then cools down to come back as precipitate. If the region is too dry, like a desert, it doesn't rain over a desert much because desert does not have plant cover. So nothing is pumping water or oxygen through transpiration into the atmosphere, right? And then cloud formation is not happening. Do you understand that, people? So if you lose on plant cover, you also lose. You cannot resist droughts. There will be droughts coming. Okay. And then increased variability of ecosystem in general, including this one term, disease cycle. This is very important. In nature, things should go in a cyclic manner. Everything that has a logic, inherent logic, goes in a cyclic manner. Okay, most of the times. So rains, then summers, the temperature fluctuation during summers, during winters, they all should be in a range, and it should be cyclic. But don't you see that these days you are hearing of you are hearing of incidences more often, like this city touched 50 degrees or near 50 degrees in summers, and in the winters,
Yes.
the same city will go to touch zero almost. Delhi is one of the examples. I live in Delhi, and I can tell you that in summers it's so hot, Delhi touches almost 48 sometimes. 48 degrees Celsius is scorching a temperature, right? And during the
Yeah.
winters, like this winter only, in the first week of January, it almost, some regions of Delhi touched 0.8, 0.7, for some time, but yeah, they did. So can you see this fluctuation? It is around 48 degrees, 49 degrees of fluctuation at the same region in a cycle of seasons. And this should not happen, because Delhi still is not too away from tropics. Okay, you understand, right? So this kind of a situation, and it's increasing at many places. So I think we were talking about, which city I was talking to you about, where there was hailstorm, the hottest city, Kuwait, was it? I think Fatima was
Yeah.
also,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Fatima was also very surprised to know that. But it hailstormed in Kuwait, which is one of the hottest cities of the planet. And it's obvious that why it is hottest, because it's around the arid region, not too much of forest cover, stony region, and sands around, very dry habitat. But if it hailstones, or if there is a thin layer of ice on the roads during some season, you can understand that the ecosystem is not at all predictable. It's going haywire, right? Anyway, so these are the what it leads to. Three things: decline in plant production, lowered resistance to environmental perturbations like drought, famine, etc., rain, etc., increased variability in the processes like productivity, water use, pest, disease control, temperature, rainfall, etc. Anyways, now what are the causes? That's the important thing. Now, to put things in a context, in a series, first and the major so there are four things. So we call it the Evil Quadrant. So this is how it's defined by people who are ecologists. They call it the Evil Quadrant. The four
It
reasons.
sounds like a supervillain.
Yes, exactly. It is for our planet. These four reasons merged together is a hypothetical supervillain, the Evil Quartet, or a group of four people who are the evil most, the Fantastic Four, the Evil Four kind of thing, which all are driven by human activities, by the way. Okay, so that's where we realize this is what you can throw at the face of a capitalist or industrialist who does not believe in conservation. You can say that, see, first thing is habitat loss and fragmentation, right? Habitat loss is simply because we are driving animals and plants away from their homes. We are cutting down trees, forest covers. I told you this very grim fact once, that by the time our class will be over, in that time there'll be the forest cover in Amazon equivalent to a football field will be gone. So this is how fast some industries are cutting down trees in forest. So we think that, oh, it's very fast a speed, but the Amazon forest is also insanely huge. So people think that, okay, we are just taking one spoon from an ocean, but you're just taking it over time and time, and we don't have to wait till you have taken 90% to see the effect. We start seeing effect right from the beginning, because first, if not a complete loss, we are fragmenting. Fragmentation means, you must have seen forest areas or satellite images of forest areas where the forest area is there. In between the forest area, there's a highway going, right? Or a railway project going, correct? Or in between a forest cover area, you will see some cities expanding into it, or some agricultural fields. Some patch is cleared to just do agriculture. And on east and west, on north and south side of that patch are forests. Have you
Yes,
seen
sir.
such? Yeah. Those are also not good, because we think that we are trying to make a balance, but we are not, because we are fragmenting habitats. And other kind of research, some of which is also done in my university, and other people are doing across the globe. They are trying to understand, if I make an agricultural field just next to a forest, is it a healthy ecosystem? Turns out to be it's not. Okay, because we use a lot of artificial synthetic chemicals and fertilizers and methods of irrigation in that field which we are agriculturing. And those chemicals leach down in the soil, leaching happens, and they also seep towards the forest. So they go into the forest cover and they affect the immediate plantation, which is just next to the agricultural field. They cannot seep very deep inside, but the immediate plantation is affected. And that effect leads to a wider cascading effect, which people are now trying to understand that what effects could be there, what all effects. So they have seen that behavior, plant animal interaction behavior, they change just because of a agricultural field nearby. Now this is something in detail which we will not cover in today's class, but just to tell you, even fragmenting habitat of organism is dangerous. And what happens is, oh, they have written it here also. Can you see this? Can you read this line, Fatima?
By the time you finish reading this chapter, 1,000 more hectares of rainforests would have been lost. The Amazon rainforest, it is so huge that it is called the lungs of the planet.
Yeah, it harbors millions of species, but they're just assuming that if you read this chapter in a span of 2 days, let's say, or in a few hours, let's say, you're losing this much of rainforest already. This is how fast we are losing habitat. We means we seem to be not being affected because humans don't live in the Amazon forest, but actually many humans do. There are tribes and there are cultures that live in or around. There are villages that survive on Amazon as well. But most of the civilized human like us, we are sitting in our homes thousands of miles away from Amazon. We don't care about Amazon, but we have to. We should. Yes, Arpit.
Sir, if this thing persists, how will the humans survive?
Exactly. That's why we are teaching the next generation, telling them the real facts, telling them that see how one thing is important to others, so that more people will stand up, whether they go to politics, whether to become scientists, whether they become anything in their life, whether they become a CEO of a multinational company like Gucci, Prada, any cosmetic company, any leather company. So when you will come into that decision making capacity, you will not just be blinded by profit and growth and lust at the cost of ecosystem, because you will remember, we hope, we believe, more and more people will remember that more and more efforts have to be put in. And when there will be efforts from companies, industries, politicians, scientists, philanthropists, things will change, right? It's not like everything is happening, everything bad is happening. There are also good things happening. So people have, because of their protests and because of collaborative efforts from industries also, people have achieved no fishing zones at various places. So fishing and killing of whales and sharks are banned at many places. Trades of snake leather, alligator leathers have been made illegal by countries itself, like politicians itself. So you have fine, you have punishments for that. Poaching, illegal poaching has been banned, right? All these things were not banned 200 years ago, but now they are, because we realize we have to do that. Correct? Carbon emission, countries every year or every few years, they promise in the UN or the G20 summit that we will reduce our carbon emissions. Now, this is a topic of debate, how much they follow these promises, but still something is pushing them to make at least the promises, to think in that way, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Great. So that's how we will survive. The other way is how Elon Musk thinks he'll take everyone to Mars. Well, I'll not be interested in going to Mars. It would be fun to just go and come back, a trip, but I don't think that, it's my personal opinion, very humble opinion, that at any given point of time, it is easier to survive your dying planet than to revive a dead planet. Right?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yes. So we just have to change our mindset. But okay, cool. So habitat loss leads to a lot of extinctions and fragmentation. So what does it mean? It means that when tropical rainforests are cut, so once more than 14% of Earth's land surface was tropical rainforest. Remember this term. And this once means when the first satellite started taking the data of the forest cover, it was way back. We see that this forest cover was too much. 14% is a very huge amount of 100% land, okay? Earth's land surface. And now, like when this book, so this is 2022, 2023 version. If we agree that these are the 2023 latest data, which is it is not, it is around 2022 or 2021's data. It's reduced to 6%, and majority of which is just Amazon. We don't see any big rainforest around us. Some fraction is Western Ghat, Eastern Ghats, Sundarbans, very minor fraction, but Amazon, Brazilian forest, European rainforest, these are the some. Just 6%. Isn't it worrisome? Isn't it something we should worry about? 14% and Earth's land surface is reduced to just 6%. 8% we just removed, cut, used all the wood, destroyed the forest, made cities or agricultural land. So this is how fast it is going. So we should know these facts, okay? So besides total loss, the degradation of many habitats by pollution. So pumping pollution, like pumping waste in the sea, dumping waste in the rivers, dumping waste in the forests, that's also not good, okay? They also fragment the habitat, okay? Bringing just a big highway or a big project or a dam project in the middle of the forest, that habitats the forest, because, sorry, that fragments the forest, that fragments the habitat, okay? Now, the reason is why should we not break or fragment habitat is because many higher mammals, elephants, these apex predators like tigers, lions, they need huge areas, very large territories to survive because they have a migratory habit. They don't stay at one place forever. You know, lions or pride of lions or tigers group, they don't stay at just one water hole they found for the rest of their life. They keep migrating, they keep moving, and one tiger's territory can be around 2, 3, 4 kilometers square area. So that much area you need just for one tiger. We have already discussed that. So the migratory habits are badly affected, leading to population decline, because animals like elephants also do that. They often, when season changes, they migrate for water and food and also for mating, because they have a mating season. So if you fragment their habitat, they might not reach there, they might not mate that well. And the next generation, it will be a declining population pyramid. In the next, it will be even less. In the next, it will be even less. And over time, we will see, when you will realize what was the cost of making that city in the center of the forest or making this project in the center of the forest, by the time one more species will be lost. Okay, so that's the problem. So that's first evil in the quadrant is habitat loss and fragmentation. Is it clear, everyone? Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. The second is overexploitation. This, of course, we are doing. So we all need clothes. That's okay. It's not like we don't have enough clothes to cover every human's body on the planet. We just need too many clothes. So we need clothes, and we need a almirah full of it, a cupboard full of it, which we want to change the next year because the fashion has changed. So the clothes which are still good and can be used, we are promoting this culture of using a cloth very few number of times. Sometimes in worst cases, it's just once or twice, because we have in some weird ways, our social esteem associated with it. So more and more clothes you use and waste. Makes no sense, right? So if you have a cloth, if you have 5 pairs, use that 5 pairs at least. Let the 2 pairs go rugged and gone, then you buy. This is the ideal practice, because we are 800 crore people. Thankfully for environment and unfortunately for humans, only a fraction of us can afford to buy clothes whenever we want. But we are exploiting, we are over exploiting our resources. Same goes for gadgets, mobile phones, same goes for anything. We change things so fast because we are the consumers and the whole market is ready for us. And this is what these producers play with. Every next year, sometimes not even a year, sometimes twice a year, they will tell you that, oh, what phone you are using. That's of no use now. We have XYZ14, we have XYZ15. So you will be thinking the one who's having XYZ12 in the hand will think, oh, I'm very backward. I just have 12. I need to get 15 now, right? Don't you think this kind of thing is being feeded as a marketing strategy in people's
Yes,
mind?
sir.
Yeah. So what is the point of it? I remember in earlier times when people used to have these landline connection phones, one phone, when established in that home, was used for that purpose and was used for like 30 years, right?
By
But now,
everyone.
by everyone, yes. But now, just because we have this one small sleek thing in our hand, we are made to feel that, see, because we can afford, we should afford. We should get, when the 14 version come, we should get that 14 version. And people feel pride in that. People feel pride that, okay, I have a shoe collection of 80 shoes. But I'm like, but why do you have 80 shoes? You have just one pair of leg, right? And for what do you have 80 shoes? For that 80 shoes could be very good for 40 pair of legs, each having 2 pair of shoes or 3 pair of shoes. You understand? It's more than enough. So we have to decide on the basis of our moral etiquettes what is enough for us. So I remember the quote of, I think it was, if I'm not wrong, it was said by Mahatma Gandhi or someone, that the earth has enough for everyone's need, but the earth does not have
So you'll
enough
need
for,
like two more worlds Earths for like their greed or something, right? I think something like that.
so our planet has enough for everyone's need, but the planet does not have enough for even one person's greed. So if even one person becomes greedy to a level that which is infinity, there's no end to it, right? So that's what overexploitation is. So
But
where
everyone
need,
is greedy.
sorry, yes, Fatima.
But everyone is greedy.
Everyone these days seems to be greedy, or seems to be in this race of fitting into the social status well. Because if a family has 6 cars, they are wealthy. If they have 10s, they are wealthier than those. But a family is just 4 people. 4 people can easily fit in 1 car. At the worst, you can keep 2. Let's say 3. But why do you have 4 cars? The point is that, so in the name of saying ourselves collectors, we do collections. We want to collect plants. So I have one forest for me. That's not a status symbol, right? But I have a villa, you say a farmhouse, which was built by cutting 1 acre of land of forest. That is what a status symbol is. So we need to change these things. Eventually, if we will not, then everyone will suffer. The rich, it's not like rich will not suffer. Rich will suffer the last, but they will suffer the most severe ways. So the poor will die of starvation. The rich will die of starvation and illness and failures and pathogenic attacks and everything, and radiation, because ozone layer will be gone. So the one who will suffer the last will suffer the most. The one who will suffer the first will just perish just by starvation. Simple. Okay, it's still a better way to go, I think. Anyways, so overexploitation should not be done at any cost. Why? What it leads to is overexploitation of natural resources.
Sir,
Yeah, yes, Arpit.
sir, can you show that previous page?
Yes, I will. What do you want? You want to note down something from here?
Sir, I also wanted to ask, like, this overexploitation and habitat loss, sir, aren't they interrelated? Like, if you will overexploit the thing, generally there will be loss of habitat. And
Exactly. They are perfectly, you're right. They are perfect. And it's great. I appreciate that you noted this thing and you brought it in. Overexploitation leads to habitat loss faster than it should. Basically, overexploitation leads to habitat loss. Otherwise, just for our needs, we might decide to make a balance between us and the animals, and we can do good with that. So the Siamese crocodile, it's a species of crocodile, very, very beautiful crocodiles, but they are all, they were almost on the verge of threatening. They were threatened at one point of time, and then people, for their leather, started inbreeding them. So programs started where people in farm like setups started breeding Siamese like chickens. But that's not how evolution works, right? Remember that there was no variation if you are inbreeding, and over time you will see inbreeding depression, diseases, and very, very harmful genes getting, what do you say, over the time getting accumulated. And they are very, so all these, so even if we have 1,000 individuals of that species, even one disease can wipe all of them out because they're all products of inbreeding, right? And why they were inbred and why they were smuggled? Because of their leather. So their leather is the one which was used for a very long time by very, very rich brands which make leather bags, belts, shoes, etc. Right? So that's overexploitation. So somehow people have started associating that, oh, if you're using synthetic leather, which that's not a status symbol. See, I have a bag made of the Siamese crocodile's leather, but I don't think you should be proud of that. You killed one Siamese crocodile for no reason. You know, you didn't kill it for food or to eat or to get energy. You just killed it to show that you have a bag. Makes no sense to me anyways. But cool. So yes, Arpit, you are absolutely correct. Overexploitation leads to habitat loss at a very rapid rate. Okay. So one example is Steller's sea cow and passenger pigeon. Do two examples. So in the last 500 years, Steller's sea cow and passenger pigeons extinction were due to overexploitation by humans. Presently, the system which is prone to be get extinct or collapse is the marine ecosystem, because presently the most exploited ecosystem is the marine ecosystem for fisheries. Okay, so this is also you can quote in your exam, that marine fish population around the world are over harvested, and what happens in that is the demand goes up, people are shifting more and people want it. So you kill fish. How you can sustain is that you keep a steady flow to the market, but sometimes just because of this idea of multi-cuisine, so you will find continental food. One thing which I don't know, at many levels, I don't know how justified it is, we all enjoy Japanese cuisine, Italian cuisine, Mexican cuisine, sitting in our own countries, in our cities. It's good, but the point is, all these ingredients, where are they coming from? Because it's not like if you are eating an Italian cuisine, the Italians have stopped eating it. They are still eating it, right? But you are also eating it. So it's just expanding. The demand is expanding. And to meet that demand, we don't have that rate of production of these fish in the water which we can harvest. So what we do, we go into deep and deep seas to get these fish. And in that, so we only want the edible fish. But when you throw a net, it's not like only your fish, the fish that you want will come in your net. There will be shark babies, there'll be other fish that will come, stingrays, octopuses sometimes that get into your fish net, because you're going deeper and deeper in the sea. So what to do with that? Those are killed for no reason, right? You are not eating it, you are not doing anything, but they are just dead and you just throw them back in the ocean. So they are also getting affected because of our edible fish harvestation. Is it clear? So overexploitation affects at many levels, not just the one we are targeting, but also with those who are around it. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Everyone? Yep. The third evil in that quadrant is alien species invasion. Again, humans have been a major reason for this to happen. By alien species invasions, I mean that sometimes unintentionally, sometimes intentionally, many species were introduced in a different ecosystem brought from somewhere else. For example, this very current example of introducing cheetahs to Indian habitats. Of course, we had cheetahs in the past, but these cheetahs that are imported, they are not from our own habitat, right? So they will take some time to do good in the habitat. We don't know even if they will do good or bad to the habitat. That is to be seen. But we have seen in the past many examples where alien species invasion has affected negatively the existing species richness in the region where it is introduced. For example, this Nile perch, okay, when it was introduced into Lake Victoria in East Africa, it led eventually to the extinction of an a huge assemblage of around 200 species of fish in this lake. So you introduced one fish, which is a perch fish, which is a big fish. And because that kind of dominated the whole lake, the Victoria Lake, in that big lake, more than 200 species of the cichlid fish, which are the native fish of that lake, were affected, right? And they were extinct. So do you think it was a good step? No.
No.
Of course not, right? But
Well,
then why do
did
we
they do it?
Exactly. The question is, why did they do it? So sometimes they thought that this will help, and also it will lead to more diversity. Again, a not so well thought move. This was also done by British, by the way, in
How
the
will
case
that
of
lead to more diversity? That
you
doesn't
are
make
introducing.
sense.
It's like 200 plus 1. So now we have 201. And they also, perch fish look very beautiful. So if you want to go fishing, and if you get a perch fish in your fish net, like in the fish hook, you will feel good, right? Oh, I got a perch fish. People go fishing. Or sometimes in what do you say, in the efforts to make things more diverse, we actually mess it up. You know, the same thing was done by British when they brought water water hyacinth. You know, it is known as the Bengal terror. If I'm not wrong, it was water hyacinth, right? You remember that? Eichhornia, yes, it's written here. So this plant is a green leafy plant that looks very beautiful on lakes, okay? So if you'll go to European lakes, there is a fountain in the middle. Have you ever seen these cartoons or movies, or some movies where they show lakes, like Cinderella kind of movies? They always there's a fountain in the middle of the lake, and there are some green leafy plants
Yes,
growing in that lake. It makes the lake look very beautiful. And sometimes when they flower, like lily or lotus, they also look beautiful, right? So in cold countries like Britain, European countries, this water hyacinth in the lake grows to a with the optimal growth rate, because it's a temperate zone. They didn't think that what will happen if we'll just introduce it in the lakes of Bengal, in Kolkata. We are a hot, humid, around tropical region, country. Now, when you bring things here, all of a sudden that plant got so much of factors to support its growth, it started growing like a mad. It suddenly became the cancer for that lake. It covered the whole lake ecosystem, very thick covering, no sunlight, and very less oxygen could go inside the lake. And because of which everything that lives inside the lake, flourishes inside the lake, like fish and crustaceans and other plants, they just simply died. So after some time, even this plant itself will not flourish, the whole lake will die. The whole lake ecosystem will die. Do you understand?
yes, sir.
So, and it's very difficult to get rid of it, because once they just grow, even if you remove all of them, some seed or some spore or some part will be left, and they will again grow from that. The same thing happened for lantana. Lantana is a very, very invasive plant in many forests of India. Lantana was introduced because it has very beautiful red colored flowers. So they wanted our bushes. So, you know, the boundary walls are made up of bush. So we thought, okay, let's make our boundary walls with lantana. And somehow lantana reached the forests, near the forests, and it just took over the ecosystem. So from many places, on an annual basis, the efforts are done to remove lantana. Lantana is not a very good plant. It's a very parasitic plant. You can say it takes over the ecosystem, does not allow other plants to grow. Or carrot grass, which is called Parthenium. There's an interesting story for carrot grass as well. So back then, India used to import wheat. We were not very good with it is before the green revolution that happened in India, about which we studied, right? Then we started producing a lot to also feed our country and also export. Before that, India was a poor country. They used to import wheat. And when they imported wheat from the US, with that wheat stock, carrot grass also came to India. Okay. And this carrot grass, any in the North India, to any municipal park or a forest or a land which is untouched, you go, 100% with surety you will find carrot grass. It just lives with grass, but the leaves are like miniature versions of a carrot leaf. That's why it's called carrot grass. It's a grass, but it's very, very, it grows explosively, it takes over very fast. So these are all invasive. They invaded from outside, and they created a problem in the existing ecosystem, not just with plants, with animals also. Okay, so there was this recent illegal introduction of African catfish. It is, I think, in 90s or 20s it happened. 20s, I think. I was in school. So aquaculture, for aquaculture purposes, they introduced African catfish, okay, to the indigenous catfish in Indian rivers, and that started causing a problem, because catfish are sometimes very, very arrogant and aggressive fish, and they were big. So the indigenous catfishes which were there in our rivers, they started becoming threatened, and their numbers started declining. Then they have to do a rescue kind of a thing, get these African catfish, shift them somewhere else, or kill them on purpose. I don't know what's happened to that. But yes, alien species invasion also is not very good. Okay, that's why when people say that, okay, why can't we have kangaroos in other parts of the planet as well? Now we can just import them. So people in America would like to see, some rich brats in America would like to see kangaroos in their grasslands. But because they don't have sense, all they have is money. They want to see a kangaroo in their grasslands, but that will just mess up the whole grassland ecosystem. That's why kangaroos are where they should be, right? Apart from just some zoos where they are protected, caged in an environment. So you cannot introduce kangaroos. That's where there is a very, very severe penalty on illegal trade of animals. You cannot bring iguanas from somewhere to somewhere. You cannot bring reptiles from somewhere to somewhere. That trade is illegal. Okay. And finally is co-extinctions. Co-extinction is a result of all of the above: habitat loss, overexploitation, alien species invasion. Whenever these three leads to extinction of one species, sometimes the extinction of other species is associated with that. The species which was attached to the other species in an obligatory way. For example, let's say there is a bigger fish that hunts, and there are some smaller fish. Remember I told you this interactions called mutualism and commensalism?
Yes, sir.
Right. So if you kill the bigger fish and their population does not exist, these smaller fish also will not find food or shelter or protection, right? So they will also go extinct. But you did not do anything to that species, the smaller fish species. You only affected the bigger fish. That is called co-extinctions. Going extinct together. So when a species become extinct, the plant and animal species associated with it in an obligatory way also become extinct. Okay. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That is also seen in plant pollinators. Remember we were talking, if all the bees goes extinct, then all the plants that they pollinate also will go extinct, right? Over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these four are called the evil quadrant that you have to remember about. And this is all the important things of this chapter. And the final thing is biodiversity conservation. And why should we conserve biodiversity? I think you all by now, I think you all can give this answer. Why should we conserve biodiversity? But the answer that you have to write in your boards, if this question comes, then you have to write these 2 points. Write 2 major points, your answers, divide your answers in 2 major points. 3 actually. I will just talk about 2 majorly. Third is called the ethical reason. So we have a moral obligation to not kill. It sounds good to write that. And we should write that. We should always keep reminding the immoral people about morality. That is one way. Sometimes you will think that it doesn't work. If you're going to tell a corrupt person that corruption is bad, how is it going to make a difference? Seems like there's a idiom in Hindi कि भैंस के आगे बीन बजाना. Do you know the meaning of it, anyone?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So the meaning, Arpit, can you explain? It will help me. What does it mean? भैंस के आगे बीन बजाना. Bean is like that instrument that, again, it has a lot of myths associated with it. So it's like a flute, a big sandpiper thing that these snake catchers play, right? It's like a pipe instrument. So they play it and they think that they can make the snake kind of hypnotize the snake with it and catch the snake. You know about it, snake catchers? They have this one sandpipe of thing, instrument, like a flute, but a very high pitched one.
Yes, sir.
So the idiom means that you are telling someone something and that someone does not care about that thing, that someone is least perturbed about that thing. That is what talking about moral ethics to conserve ecosystem is, but we still should do it. So there are major three. So they say that it can be grouped into three categories. The reasons. One is called narrow utilitarian reason, broad utilitarian, and ethical reasons. Narrow utilitarian means that we are dependent on the biodiversity for things which are important, but we can live without them. For example, cereals, pulses, fruits, firewood, fiber, construction material, industrial products like tannins, lubricants, dyes, resins, and perfumes. These are the things we get from biodiversity, like animal and plant sources, but we can live without them. We can find alternates or synthetic ways to make tannins, lubricants. We can make synthetic lubricants, synthetic perfumes, synthetic resins. Instead of firewood, you can burn coal or something else like petroleum or fossil or something else. Instead of fiber, you can make synthetic fibers like nylon, rayon. So you can compensate. Okay. So that's why it's called narrowly utilitarian. So the argument says that it is important for conserving biodiversity because humans derive countless direct economic benefits from nature, which includes these things. Not just this, our medicines also come from nature sources. So if you read this line, Matthew, would you like to read this line?
Sure, sir. More than 25% of the drugs currently sold in the market worldwide are derived from plants, and 25,000 species of plants contribute to the traditional medicines used by native peoples around the world.
Yeah, so you can understand that how heavily we rely on plant and the flora biodiversity for our medicines only, right? Just to get our antibiotics, we depend a lot on fungi, correct? Though we now have some synthetic analogs of it, but the raw material we get from plants only. So if we lose biodiversity, we are going to lose out on our food, materials, industrial products, and our medicines. But someone can say, okay, these are still somehow we can mitigate it. Then comes the broadly utilitarian argument. This argument says that it is very important to conserve biodiversity because nature provides you things for which there is no alternative. And what are those things for which there is no alternative? First thing is oxygen, right? So Amazon forest is estimated to produce 20% of the total oxygen of the Earth's atmosphere. 1/5 of the total oxygen is just produced by Amazon, and you are cutting Amazon at a very alarming speed. So if oxygen is not there, you cannot create oxygen artificially and survive, right? Do you understand? So this is a broad utilitarian argument and it's more important. So question is, can we put an economic value to this service by nature? No, not at all. Remember a time when plants are not producing oxygens and some industrialists have figured out how to split water and produce oxygen, which can be done actually. Let me be very, very honest with you. It can be done. You can produce synthetic oxygen. I was just not telling you to dilute this point, but let's imagine an era where oxygen is being produced by factories and being sold per cylinder or per kg rate. So when you will go to get refueled your vehicle, you also will go to get refueled your backpack, which contains a cylinder which has oxygen, and you have a mask always. So you are actually carrying your lifeline in your bag. A poor people who cannot afford that will just die of suffocation. So that's a very bad stage where humanity can reach. So all these science fiction movies are not just science fiction movies, they are thoughts. which we should also always have in our back of the mind. So getting oxygen is a broad utilitarian reason to not cut forest. Also pollination. Without pollination, humans cannot pollinate all their crops by any means. Only the crops which are wind pollinated can survive, but majority of our things are also pollinated by insects. Okay, and if pollination fails, all our crops which depend on pollination will fail. So we'll not get food, any kind of food, not just cereals. So is it clear? So two things, oxygen and pollination is the broad utilitarian argument. Others like tannin, resin, perfumes, some pulses, some kind of fruits are narrow utilitarian region, including medicines. And third is the ethical argument, which says that philosophically, this planet is the home to every living system, and we have a moral duty to care for their well-being and pass on our biological legacy in good order to future generations, so that our future generation can also see giraffe in real. They don't have to refer to textbooks like we refer to textbooks when we have to see a Tasmanian tiger, right? There's no Tasmanian tiger now alive. So if I wish to see a Tasmanian tiger, I can only see it in the textbook. So we don't want our future generations to see normal tigers or giraffes or elephants or rhinoceros just in the textbooks. So that's our moral obligation. Okay, is that clear, everyone? Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then you will end this chapter by how to do it. So again, to do it, there are two ways: in situ conservation and ex situ. In situ means on site. You conserve biodiversity where it is present. So we will take this last concept in tomorrow's class, and this chapter will be over. And because it will just be over in half an hour tomorrow, so I will also spend the rest of the time to talk about chapter 16, which is deleted, and some of the concepts like ozone hole and sewage, pollution in the water problem. Okay, because they are related to ecosystem and might be asked. Okay, so we'll do that tomorrow.
Sir, for NEET exam, we will discuss that 16th chapter.
Yeah, just for like some concepts that will help you overall in fundamental science to understand biodiversity better. Not everything we'll discuss, but just some things. Okay, and we'll finish this and I'll take your doubts. So bring your doubts, everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow then. Yeah.
Okay, sir.